Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with Savage Unfiltered Podcast, TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Lenard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. As Listen Note says, there are 168.9 million plus podcast episodes available out there for you to listen to. So I really appreciate you tuning into mine. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! This is ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, Season 1, Episode 12, and it's going to be a bit different and off the wall. As this is the weekend before 9/11, I am not going to write another full piece regarding remembering and honoring those lost and those who have left behind and potentially dealing with survivor's guilt. I'd also written a piece regarding honoring the fallen from Memorial Day so that we don't forget them. Please check out that piece, as well as the 4th of July pieces, part 1 and 2, remembering our freedoms and our God-given rights after the 4th of July. With 9/11 coming up, this being right before that, I just want to reflect on those past articles, those past shows, and this show itself. I will be having a discussion with Ed Bonderenka of WAAM Radio, as well as others. With Ed, we will be touching on the fact that 9/11 is indeed not a holiday. Memorial Day is, of course, a holiday, but holiday being derived from the term holy day. These aren't celebrations, though. They are somber, fond remembrances of those lost and those who fight to protect our freedoms. And my book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Remember, terrorism can happen anytime, any place. It's not just a big city issue. Like, for instance, the mass shootings last year. I have a set of notes here, if you can hear it rustling, as Rush Limbaugh would say, although I don't have formerly nicotine-stained hands. Mass shootings, a couple just last year. Brooklyn subway, all right, big city area, but Iowa nightclub, Arkansas car show, Vegas hookah bar, a Virginia hookah bar. So we need to remember that terrorism can strike anytime, any place. And like the Amtrak between Missouri, St. Louis, and Chicago that was derailed, we don't hear anything about that. And again, there was a truck there that caused the derailment. Where was the driver? Where did he go? We don't hear anything about that. That may have indeed been terrorism. East Palestine, of course, was not terrorism, but terrorists can easily upend and derail a chemical train in hopes of creating toxic fumes. And my Tulsa chapter predicted that that indeed was going to happen. At any rate, this is just going to be a very brief opening segment. I'm going to get into the interview with Ed, and it will be followed with others. Thank you for tuning in today, and please have thoughts and prayers to those who are still suffering, the first responders due to all the toxicity of everything down around ground zero, and those who survived dealing with post-traumatic stress form of survivor's guilt. Let them know they are in our thoughts and prayers. Hello, I am now joined with Ed Bonderenka of WAAM Radio show, Your American Heritage, which in part ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast is a little modeled after, or certainly influenced by. And again, it's WAAM Radio, WAAM, Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You could go to whamradio.com and hit the listen live link anywhere in the world. And like I joked with Phil and Bruce, we recorded for last week's show. It's the WAAM, not the wake me up before you go kind, right? You know me, I can never resist a bad pun. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about radio and why you got a show on WAAM.
Well, you're talking about ChristiTutionalist. For instance, my guest today, the show I just wrapped up with William J. Federer. Basically, I decided to let him preach today. You know, he's a historian expert, and you know, he just gave us the basis of our nation and its spiritual heritage in the Great Awakening up till today, and you know, the necessity of having Christians stand up for their faith and stand up to the government to keep things real. The responsibility they have, the responsibility the pastors have, not to just sit it out, but to get engaged. Or else, you know, what does Adams have to say? He says it's not fit government for other than religious people. Well, you know, it doesn't do any good if you don't put your religion to the test and actually shift it into gear and nudge the government to where it should go, especially today.
Yeah, exactly. I forget exactly how he quoted things, but indeed, I have been saying for decades, you shall be known by your fruits, right? You shall reap what you sow, or like the Rush tune says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. If you don't sow fruit, you're stuck consuming the poison someone else has sown, right? You have to be involved. And I wish I could quote him from the show we just listened to, but it lost my mind. And he was saying the same thing, but quoting different scriptures and different motivation.
The Adams quote is, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other.
Yeah, and if he was saying during the show, sitting back, like I just said, then that you're somehow aloof and above it all, and
pure.
You're more pure, right? Holier than thou nonsense. You reap the whirlwind of what others sow. And Jesus never meant for that to happen. Jesus was active. Jesus was involved. He overturned the money changers' table in the temple. What are you doing? Why are you allowing this? You can't just sit and allow these things to happen.
He called them out. He called the Pharisees out for leaving the nation of Israel spiritually bereft, for one. And, you know, they were in it for self-centered motives and not serving the people anymore, as was their mandate.
Exactly. And render unto Caesar doesn't mean render all our Christian duties to Caesar, right? You've got to be involved. Be your brother's keeper means charity from us, from our heart. That means not only giving of ourselves and our own money and of our time, that includes government to make sure things work. Like I often talk about LBJ, I discussed it with Bruce and Phil, the Great Society, destroying the family and all that, creating the welfare state, which is unconstitutional. That has nothing to do with our founders saying, promote the general welfare. Individual federal welfare checks are not promoting the general welfare. They are creating dependency to buy votes with.
Exactly. In fact, William Wagner's group, Salt and Light Global, taken from the scripture. You know, you're supposed to be salt and light. That means to the culture. That doesn't mean within the boundary of your church meeting. Not at all. Or, you know, your neighbors. You're supposed to be preserving of the culture, of the Christian values that have been passed on to you.
Yeah,
It's a mandate. It's a
yeah,
mandate from God.
right. Avoiding the often overused term preaching to the choir, but I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. That's valid. You're not really practicing full set of Christianity. Like, I love how people love to quote Matthew, "Thou shalt not judge," but stop there. Ignore the rest of the line and ignore the other dozen scriptures that tell you, yes, you judge biblically. And like Alison Lorkowski, you vote biblically. You have to be involved. You don't be a hypocrite, right? You judge on the same set of standards, the same biblical standards. You have to hold yourself and others too, but final judgment is for the Lord, right? It should be condemn not, lest ye be condemned, really, right? I do not condone your lifestyle, but it's not up to me to condemn your lifestyle. Yes?
Exactly. Exactly. I'm blessed that you mentioned Alison Lorkowski. She's moved on to her place with the Lord. But actually, she's the one who actually was, she brought William Federer to this state for a tour. And that's how I had the opportunity to meet him in person and have him stay overnight in my house and have dinner and breakfast with him. And it's a blessing. And I owe it all to Allison. I'll thank her again when I see her in heaven, but I want to postpone that time.
Okay. I don't have long with you today.
Oh, that's good.
So
I'm out of words. I'm all talked out for today.
where I haven't had, yeah, since you co-host with Pastor Rick on Moment of Clarity, and then your show at 2:00, his at 1, yours at 2 Eastern time immediately follows. So yeah, you've done a lot of talking. I have already today too, and I've got to get off this to do Savaged Unfiltered live next. So I'm going to be doing more talking, but this will air right before 9/11, and it's important to remember or to remind people that, like Memorial Day, though, is an official holiday, 9/11 is not an official holiday, at least not yet.
It's a sacred day.
Yeah, it's not a holiday to, like the 4th of July, to celebrate our freedoms and our rights, which I've discussed on this show and in my articles the last few weeks. We're letting erode and escape, like Franklin, a republic if you can keep it. Another reason why we as Christians have to be involved. We're not keeping it because we're allowing it to erode away. But yeah, it's a fond, somber remembrance. Your thoughts?
Well, like as I said, there was a sacred day, and actually the etymology of the word holiday comes from holy day, and holy means to be set apart or sacred, set apart. So yeah, it's not a holiday for fireworks, but it's a day set apart for remembrance, a day of memorial.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Right. The derivative of holiday is holy day. And that's, again, the erosion of not just the republic, the erosion of the language that has been lost. Holiday has just become mattress day sales, right?
Beach day.
Beach day. Exactly. We've lost, and I've discussed that many times, the warping and twisting of language. We've lost the language. We're allowing the left to not just rewrite history, but rewrite our verbiage, and we can't have an honest conversation if we don't have a common set of terms to have that discussion based upon, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Good talking to you. Thanks
it was great talking to you, Ed. Thanks for stopping by. Take care and God bless.
All right. Looking forward to your next comments. See ya.
Those viewing this show via video, limit at the time of this recording to my Rumble and YouTube channels, will notice an obvious segue from the regularly recorded portion of the show and this subsegment. Indeed, you see, if viewing versus listening, a different green screen background differentiating the segments. And I hope the thunder outside, since it's storming, the day of this recording doesn't bleed on and be too distracting. As been saying, this is a low-key podcast. Haven't converted the spare bedroom computer / office room into a soundproof padded studio yet, nor bleed from the neighbor's sump pump being installed. A lot of jackhammering going on. And they have the side door open to vent fumes and circulate some air while they work. And I tell you all this partly for you to kind of get to know me more, and this a personal me and you together friendly podcast. And yes, while I pride myself and honesty I offer that this show will be unscripted. I will have notes. I'm cheating with a script on this segment, okay? Anyway, the reason for the transition being I'm bringing in ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast first ever guest, pre-recorded Thursday, June 29th, 2023, as this may appear on later seasons. I may bring it as a flashback. So please welcome my friend, Pastor Robert Thibodeau. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Joseph, it's blessed, man. I appreciate your invite, and it is a blessing to be able to come on and share with your audience.
Thank you. Thank you again as I joked before, I know you're busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, as the saying goes, so a little off script there. Rather than me reading back to the script, rather than me reading dry introductory bio, how about you give us your background beyond the obvious, you're a real man, continue to identify as a male you've always been, no threat to Biden cabinet buffoon Sam Brinton will want to steal your luggage. There are no dresses or pumps in there, right?
That's right. That's right.
And tell about the many irons you had in the fire, including 3 active podcasts over the last couple of decades.
All right. Well, quick background. I did 12 years in the military as a cavalry officer. Got out, had my own business for a while, decided I got bored with it and became a cop. And that was my new career choice. Now, I was born again during this time frame, and we, went to ministry school and completed all that. And then 2007, I was injured on the job and had to go through a bunch of surgery, 32 different medical procedures. And over the course of that time, they started talking about, we may have to make you retire. And that's why I got praying, Lord, I'm getting too old to keep starting this stuff over again. What does he want me to do? And it was just so clear, begin a weekly 30-minute online radio program. Now, you have to understand my background and my technology capabilities at that time.
Of the lack thereof, right? Yeah.
I had to have help checking my email account. Okay. And, so this was like way over my head. But I was recovering from a knee surgery, couldn't walk around that much. So I'm sitting in front of the computer screen to say, well, let me go to the great savior, Google, and figure out how to do it. And my first radio program was me talking on a flip cell phone, remember them? And a free website. Called talkshoe.com.
Kind of like my low-key ChristiTutionalist podcast beginning. Yep. Cheating using Zoom. Yep, go on.
Yeah, exactly. Use what you can work, right? Well, I started getting a following, and I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is kind of cool. And about 6 months into that, I got approached by a Christian AM radio station conglomerate based in South Carolina. They said, we heard your podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was, let alone that I had one, right? And they said, we heard your podcast. Would you like to be on nationwide AM radio? And I'm thinking, oh, yeah. I mean, this is the Lord's doing. It's marvelous in my eyes, right? Catch was I had to pay for it. Just little tiny details you learn as you go. But the normal retirement process for our department was 12 to 18 months for a medical retirement. So I said, okay, I'll do this for a year and, use this as the baseline and the platform, get it built up, and then I'll retire, and that'll be what I do. Well, about 6 months in, and it was expensive, but 6 months into that, I got a letter in the mail one day that said, congratulations on your retirement. Now you're living on half your income. And I still got this big radio budget. So I knew I wasn't going to renew that contract. So about that time, the Lord put on our heart to start a Christian online radio station and to make it so affordable, no pastor could not say no. So he gave me a list of 10 things that we were supposed to put on the radio, have on a radio station, have the capability of doing. So I went back to the great savior, Google, to try and find one already doing it that I could pattern myself after. Nobody was doing it. This would have been 2009. Nobody was doing it. Nobody. iHeart, show you when this was at, iHeart Radio had just started and they were only doing music. Right? So
I know the time frames our memories play tricks on us. We think these things have been around for decades, and they haven't. I'm a former IT guy. I go back to the 300 baud dial-up modem days, before the internet actually existed. And even that really wasn't all that long ago.
That's right. Yeah, my first computer was a Tandy 286, and I crashed that. So there you go. But we we couldn't find anybody to pattern ourselves after. So my son-in-law, he's an IT guy, so he said, let's build it, and we did, and we tested it all out. Worked great. And we launched what's now Evangelism Radio on October 4th, 2010. It's been going 24/7 ever since. We've got major ministries. If I mentioned their names, you'd know who they were. We got some of them on there. We got, we cater to the smaller churches and ministries. And we've been going 24/7 now. This is our 13th year. And we were rated at one time #1 in the world by shoutcast.com for Christian talk. And the podcast, the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, that's a podcast #1, evolved out of that just for me as a way to interview our broadcasters. But, it wasn't really a priority at that time. And then I got introduced by a publicist to a Christian author, such as yourself. And, all of a sudden the total dynamics of the podcast changed. We started doing authors, recording artists, CEOs, nonprofit leaders, business owners, online coaches, across the gamut, but all of them are Christian, and that's what they have in common, but their stories are all different and what they're doing is different. And that podcast has taken off like a rocket. We just recently, about a week or two ago, went over 200,000 downloads, and we're rated in the top 0.5% now of all podcasts worldwide with that podcast. And I started a faith-based business podcast just to help people promote their faith-based business. It could be, think Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, it's a secular business. They're Christian themed, and that's what the owners, that's what they focus on, is their faith, but it's a secular setting. Well, those are the types of businesses we promote on the Faith-Based Business Podcast. And then I did a lot of interviews with all this stuff. The COVID pandemic really started it off. And then everything you see happening in the news right now.
Yeah, I want to interrupt for a second about you were saying about the Christian base, but still in the secular world operations. Yeah, because boycotts are in the news, right? Bud Light and Target and all that. We also need to boycott, right?
That's
we
right.
need to know there is an app called Align Us I'm on. I'm also on Mammoth Nation, right? Christian or conservative sites to let you know who are the fellow Christian or conservative businesses to promote. I'm sorry, I wanted to interject that.
No, that's fine, because that's the type of stuff we need to support. And that's the purpose of the Faith-Based Business Podcast. Put that out there, let people know this is safe. And then, like I say, with all the stuff going on in the news, we start getting a lot of guests coming on, minister guests talking about prophecy. So we started this year Revelation Warning Podcast, and that podcast has just taken off. We're at like 50,000 downloads.
And already. Thank you for having me on both Kingdom and
That's
Revelations.
Right. Yeah, that's right. and like I said, that is a very popular topic right now, end times and prophecy and stuff like that. And it reflects because of the amount of traffic we're getting on that. And, so those are the 3 platforms that I publish on almost every week. Sometimes we may not have a guest for the faith-based one, so it goes 2 weeks or something like that. But as soon as we get them in, we put it out there. The Kingdom Crossroads podcast publishes almost daily, 5 days a week. Sometimes it's 4.
Now that's a lot.
We just published also a couple weeks ago episode 1,300, and all of them are interviews. You know,
Yeah,
we did
oh
over
my.
900 interviews.
Yeah, I was planning originally to just do monthly podcast updates, but so much happens, and I write for TheLibertyBeacon.com every week, every Saturday, so it's easy to know I will have material
That's right.
weekly based on that. So I upgraded. But again, thank you for joining me as back to the script. Again, thank you for joining me as the first ever ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast show guest. Not an interview, but I am very intrigued by your recently started FaithCasters project.
Amen.
And really want you to be able to share that with my audience and be able to promote it. Please give us the outline and hopes for that, as well as the Podcasters for Christ projects.
Okay. Well, the Podcasters for Christ, I'll do that first because it's easiest. I had all these different podcasts, and then, you know, because of my length of time in podcasts, I've been asked a lot about, well, I want to start a podcast. How do I do it? And so, you know, I kept getting asked the same questions over and over again.
That's just like with me in interviews for Terror Strikes coming soon to a city near you, like you did. Come back and talk about writing and publishing. Hence, how to write a book and get it published, hints, tips, and techniques followed.
So what we did, we put together a coaching program, and it's called podcast-training.com. And then we have Faithcasters coming on board, and the interviews, the radio station. And one day the Lord said, you know, and my marketing budget, which is very limited, I was splitting it up amongst all these things. And one day the Lord said, how many businesses are you running for? I said, 4. And he said, why don't you put them all under one hood, promote that, and then people can pick which one they want to go to. And I'm like, hey, you're pretty smart.
You are now a conglomeration, right?
That's right. So Podcasters for Christ is our main hood. And you go there, and then you can pick where you want to go, whether it's for training, radio, the Kingdom Crossroads podcast, or, you know, now Faithcasters, which just launched. Faithcasters. One of the things that helped me grow our podcast to where I'm at is I subscribe to many different, basically newsletter type things that promote podcasters. But you know, you had to pay for each one, and although I got grandfathered in on many of them, so my fee is like, you know, $5 a month. I'm paying like $30 a month for all of them. I went back when we're getting ready to launch Faithcasters just to see what new people be charged, and some of them are $40, $45 a month. So, you know, I was like, wow, okay, I'm glad I did it when I did it, you know. But we wanted to make a platform like that just for Christians, because all these other ones, you're lumped into what's called religion and spirituality. So you're in there with all the different faiths, including Islam and Buddhism and Confucianism,
probably even Scientology, which I would not call a religion if my life depended on it.
Sometimes I'm listed right in between 2 Wiccans, you know, stuff like that. So I decided, well, the Lord decided that we were going to go ahead and create our own Christian newsletter to connect podcasters and guests together. And our tagline, you know, for Faithcasters is great Christian podcasters connecting with great Christian guests. And that's what we do. We launched it just recently, and it's already starting to get some traction. And, you know, I'm excited about it. And we kept the prices very low. Okay. And you can go to the website, faithcasters.org, and you can check it all out. Use Joseph's link to get in there. He's going to put the link in the show notes below, so it's easy for you to do. Just click it and you'll be taken right there. And then, you know, the newsletter itself is free. You don't have to join anything to get the information.
Okay? A very important point. And then there are other paid things.
Yeah, if you want to add yourself to our listings, that's what you pay for. But if you would just want to get the newsletter, because we feature, you know, several hosts and several guests looking for hosts in each issue, and it'll be published bi-weekly starting off. And, you know, you just go there, register for the newsletter. It comes into your email box every 2 weeks. And on the opposite weeks, we're going to highlight one podcaster, one guest, to send that out.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Every week.
But as to signing up for the paid items, buy now while it's, less expensive, right? Because you, like everybody, we all start off with our pricing lower to start the traffic, to start the buzz, to hopefully get word of mouth. And then as time grows and our costs also go up, we have to adjust up our pricing to others. So get on board now. Get on board the train before you have to try to jump on at 100 miles an hour. But I am curious, do you know or had the chance to work with Rabbi Kurt Schneider, a Messianic rabbi and creator of Discovering the Jewish Jesus podcast and part of the Jews for Jesus crew, for those who have not heard of him? I copied you on an email I sent him just the other day, as Schneider happens to be somewhat of a neighbor to me. Well, not the next city over, nor even the next county over. Rabbi Schneider is indeed a fellow Michiganian nearby, and I've reached out to him wanting to work with him on his Taking the Rainbow Back. All 7 of the colors from the 6-color fake rainbow alphabet mafia, as I call them. And I like to say, I have gay and lesbian friends. We get along just fine. They're the old school tolerance and acceptance crowd versus today's rainbow alphabet mafia, as I call them, who are gay-tivists engaging in gay-tivism. There is a major difference from that of just wanting tolerance and acceptance, love me as I am. Final judgment is between them and the Lord, not me and them, right? And an advocate engaging in grooming and wanting to legalize pedophilia. Completely different. Completely different. But anyway, that have tried to co-opt and corrupt the rainbow message. In fact, I'm wearing, if you can see it, let me move this out so I can make sure I got it on camera, the shirt, including the Genesis 9:16 and Revelations 4:3 biblical references on the shirt. I am hoping that the two of you together may be able to cross-promote, as we're doing right now today, as I am trying to help us cross-promote together. Your thoughts?
Amen. Absolutely. I just, like this past couple weeks have been a little busy with the launch.
There's that one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest thing again.
But we're he's on my list of people to contact. Put it like.
Yeah. I mean, he's Christ-centered, so I think he fits in and would work. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. It's going a little longer than I anticipated to try to stay within my parameters of things. But thanks for your time today. I appreciate you taking the time to be my first ever guest. And again, hopefully down the road, we'll probably use this as the flashback segment when there's a larger audience to see it.
Amen. Well, be sure they click the link down below in the show notes and get signed up for the newsletter.
All right. Take care, brother. God bless. I am now joined by a guest, Roger Landry of TheLibertyBeacon.com. And since most of my pieces, 99.9% of the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast, will be based on a corresponding same-day release at TheLibertyBeacon.com, I thought we'd have Roger come on and talk a little bit about TheLibertyBeacon.com. But before I have Roger take over and tell us about himself, if you're looking on my at JLenardDetroit YouTube or Rumble channel, you will see the lovely, beautiful tropical beach background, but and I display that ironically because neither my guest nor I have the time or money to get out to a nice tropical beach. But welcome to the show, Roger. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and the impetus behind The Liberty Beacon?
Well, to start it all off with, both of my children were born in Hawaii. And I lived there for 4 years because I was stationed there. And scenes like what's behind you right now were my front yard. So, yes, I do miss them quite a bit. And what was the impetus behind the Liberty Beacon Project? Roger Landry worked for the military-industrial complex, or was in the military for a total of about 30 years. If you stop to consider that I had a great job and I got paid well and I traveled the world, I've got over 1.5 million air miles under my belt, and I thought everything was great until somebody asked me to step back and look. Something I had never done before. Something that a vast majority of this planet today is tied down under, and that is we are so confused, so distracted by the manufactured crises going on all around us that we don't see the big picture. We can't. But if we stood back and looked, what we would see is that a lot of these things are connected. And they're connected through what some would like to call the global elites. Okay? What has been happening for over 200 years. This isn't something that started yesterday. The reason it's in overdrive today is because of modern technology. What is the Liberty Beacon, and why have I been rambling on? How do I get to the Liberty Beacon with all of this? It's this simple. I finally stood back after working for the very people I push back hard against today and took a look at the big picture and realized where I actually fit, not where I'd been conditioned to feel I actually fit. From that day forward, I have been running the Liberty Beacon Project, which has a website in France called Europe Reloaded, a website in the UK called UK Reloaded, a website in Australia which should be relaunched probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, 2 websites in the United States, the Liberty Beacon and the Falling Darkness, and our newest endeavor, which I'm very proud of, which is TLB Talk, a social media platform that allows you to say what needs to be said. So if I had to give you one word, and this is going to make you laugh, I know it is, if I had to give you one word for why for the last 15 years I have been beating myself up to build a global network to where people can actually know and share the truth, the answer would have to be penance.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that, and it's certainly glad. I am certainly glad that it's there. As you know, I used to write for Red State and had a falling out with them. So I've been writing for bforex.news.com, and you know, any site is only as good as those on it, right? Forex News has got some great people and it's got some kooks. I'd say the same about Red State, right? And depending on one's own perspective, you're going to find that anywhere. So you can't attack a site. You've got to seek out those who you know are giving you the facts and evidence-based truth versus the delusional bubble false narratives of the left. Generally, not entirely. Some on the right are delusional snowflakes. You're not going to get me to say Republicans are great. They ain't.
Wait a minute. Who keyed the word fascistocrats?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. Somebody named Joseph. Yes. Sí. Bueno, muy bueno.
The fascistocrats are still far worse than even the rhinos are, but the rhinos are still bad and gotta go. And you know I push back. I know you use the uniparty label. I like to push back on that and say, no, there's a lot of us, including me, fighting hard in the Republican Party to defeat rhinos, CINOs, and fascistocrats. There's just not enough of us as delegates in there and fighting depending on the state. So the rhinos, the CINOs, the fascistocrats are all deep state establishment elites in my mind. I still like to make the distinction: the Republican Party can be reclaimed and made great again.
I have no doubt about that. I really don't. And if you stop to consider that about 80% of what is beat into your brain over and over again by mainstream media night after night after night, we who have had the patience to stick around and look, see 2.5 years later, oh, we might have been wrong about that. Oh, maybe we were a little too quick when we said that. Oh, we really didn't mean that, but that's what the implications were at the time. And in other words, don't lose trust in me because I'm constantly telling you the wrong things that have the maximum effect on the lives of you and your children. Yeah. Why do you think we have TLV Talk?
Yeah.
Come and talk.
Yeah, and times do change. I mean, things aren't the same, obviously, today as they were 25 years ago or 50
Agreed.
years ago. Unfortunately, that Overton window does seem to keep moving more and more towards tyranny, which is just human nature, psychology, a laziness, or a sense of entitlement. All these, what's on
All of the
TV?
above.
Yeah, exactly. What's on TV? I can't be bothered. But yet, as I call myself a ChristiTutionalist, you reap what you sow. If you sow nothing, like the Rush song says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And you're forced to then eat the rotten fruit you've allowed others to sow if you do nothing.
If you do not involve yourself in the critical decisions that will make all of the difference, not only to your life going forward, but to the most important generation on this planet today, our children. If we do not step up soon, and I mean very soon, because I am watching tyranny accelerating globally, but then they have no choice. They realize that they've gone way too far. If they don't continue forward now, they will be admitting all the mistakes they made and they will be losing a lot of ground. The only problem with that is they're going forward with a population that is a lot more awake and aware than what they expected or hoped for.
Yeah, more and more people, and I hope I'm helping.
We are a part of it. Yes.
Yeah, through TheLibertyBeacon.com and now my podcast to awaken those from their woke stupor. And to kind of close things out and wrap them up, let's tell people about your podcast too.
Well, I have two. I have one on RBN, and that is basically just TLB Talk Radio. And that one's on Sundays from noon to 1 Central. And I have another one on Shake and Wake Radio Live. And that's on Wednesdays from 3 to 4 p.m. Central. And these are two great platforms that are partnering with the Liberty Beacon Project to allow us to say the things we know we need to say. But, hey, the Liberty Beacon Project, the entire project, years of posts on Twitter, they shut us down just before Musk took over. We have over 200,000 people following us in all of our groups and stuff on Facebook. We're lucky if a dozen people see what we post each day now.
Shadow banning, yeah.
This is why we are here. This is why we welcome people like you, Joseph, because what you bring to the table is wake the hell up and look. It's either that or don't try to defend your stupidity.
And I try to be careful. I know. One tinyurl.com/redpillstrategy where, I try not to go off into the 5G weeds. I have a friend, Diana, love her to death, but she'll walk up to anyone on the street and just start spewing about 5G. And what are you going to get? People rolling their eyes and walking away.
And pushing back. Yep.
Yeah. If I can't get them to buy into the easily evidenced Hunter Biden laptop, how am I going to get them to buy into Pizzagate? So you got to be careful what you say to who, right?
Wait. What about Hunter Biden's laptop? Is there something wrong with Hunter Biden's laptop?
Well, and I was banned on Twitter before Elon took over too, so I'm still banned trying to get
Me
back
too.
on. I do have J Leonard Author, which has very little following that I just started up again, starting to rebuild, not spending a whole lot of time focusing efforts more on things like this. But yeah, I mean, we've got to, I'm not saying we can't talk about those things and shouldn't amongst people who have a level that can handle it, right?
And in a place that will tolerate it.
Yeah, know your audience, as the saying goes, right?
Yes.
If you walk into a grocery store and lead with whatever, Pizzagate, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to effectively win anybody over. And what good is it for us to just spew to the abyss if we can't potentially bring some over? Anyway, with that, I think I'm going to close it out. This was just meant to be a brief, quick introduction about the importance of TheLibertyBeacon.com. And before I forget, I want to remind, because I've been caught in this mistake a few times, it's not Liberty Beacon, it is TheLibertyBeacon.com.
TLB.
Right? Yeah.
TLB Project.
Right, because there's some other group out there that is not the Liberty Beacon, and you want to go to TheLibertyBeacon.com and TLB Talk, as well as tune into Rogers and my podcast. I'd like all of you to welcome now my friend Michael Gardner, an author, a podcaster, graciously allows me to co-host on his Savaged Unfiltered show, and also he's starting to SAG. Oops, no, I mean, he's a SAG member, a Z-list actor. No, actually, he's in some stuff you're going to see next year if you pay close enough attention to see him. So welcome, my friend, Michael Gardner. Welcome to the show, Michael.
How's it going, Joe? What's going on, buddy?
Way too much, it's a whole, as they say, busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest lately. As I know you are. You were just down in Key West the other day, right? No, Key Largo, I mean.
Yeah, Key Largo. It's one of the center islands in the Keys. So yeah. Busy day yesterday. So.
Can you give us a hint at what movie that was, or is that hush hush?
No, it's hush hush. It's still in production. Anything that's still in production in the industry, you're not allowed to disclose any information on it.
Yeah. Okay, so we can talk about a few of the other ones, maybe?
No. Anything in production, we can't really disclose because basically we would be giving the movie out, and producers, executive directors, everybody in the industry, they can't stand that. So it's something that we just have to keep hush until, obviously the production's over. And when the production's over, then I can spitball anything with you, Joseph.
Yeah.
Right now it's zip it up.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to have you say things that will get back and make people angry and turn your employment opportunities in the acting industry to zero. But anyway, tell us a little bit about going back to the Patriot Angle and podcast and why you rebranded in that.
Oh yeah, for those who are not aware, before we rebranded to what we are now, Savaged Unfiltered, we were known as actually a couple shows. We were thrown in the handbasket of ideas. We started off with the kitchen angle table, which I thought it was kind of khaki, and the words were just all thrown in there. And it was pretty much like a rush idea. I was trying to come up with some ideas of some shows, and after like a couple of weeks, I'm like, all right, this is not working for me, or the show. The principle, the foundation, it wasn't there. So then we went from that idea to Patriot Angle, and we were actually Patriot Angle for a while. up until last year, believe it or not. And, you know, the reason behind the rebranding, Joseph, was we were basically going into other content, other marquees of the podcasting industry. We were staying, I mean, we're still somewhat to this day, you know, patriotic and political and stuff like that, but we're starting to getting into other content with authors and, you know, politicians and comedians, and I mean, you name it, I've had it on the show. So I think that was one of the reasons why we thought about, you know, rebranding. You know, my producer here, Daniel Shaky, it's his nickname, by the way, guys. I think I just gave out my producer's real name there, by the way. But anyway, you know, Daniel and I, we were talking about it, and we were like, you know, we got to come up with a better concept. So hence the name Savaged Unfiltered, because the show is not afraid to, you know, let it loose, Joseph. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And we've thank you again for. I was on the Patriot Angle discussing terror strikes coming soon to a city near you. You had me back a few times, and then you said, "Hey, would you like to co-host at times on the show?" And it's like, duh, I had to think about that for like a fraction of a second. Sure, absolutely. And without you, the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast never would have been born. So thank you for all that. Appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, we had a show that was great that we discussed music. We had a show talking about movies. And yeah, I really love getting into the weeds. Like just the other day, we got into the Norton v. Shelby, Tennessee case. So we still get into the weeds in politics to some degree, but yeah, something for everybody, right? You mix it up a little.
Yeah, you know, I constantly tell people that are getting into podcasting today, you know, like, don't be afraid to mix it up. You know, it's good to stay on your main topic of what the show will be known for. But, you know, mix it up, you know, give the audience something to look forward to each week, or, you know, every day, depending on how your scheduling is with the episodes. You know, don't be afraid to mix it up, guys. You know, throw it in there. You know, you're not going to lose audience if you talk about something other than what you mainly talk about.
Yeah, I'm expecting that this will be inserted into episode 6, Bidenomics. So I'll get your opinion on that in a second. But episode 5 currently is planned to be about movies again. So there will be a link in the show notes to the show we did about movies, mainly revolving around the 13th Floor and some other movies where there are political ties. There are political messagings there. So I could still deal with politics, but branch it a little, because people are complaining about all the wokeism in movies today, of course. But, you know, it's terrible. Yeah, what's your thought on the Biden saying, "Oh, Bidenomics is working"? Yeah, inflation's through the roof, interest rates are going through the roof, people's IRAs are drying up, but hey, he thinks they're working. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, we were just talking about movies and stuff like that, and, you know, kind of getting into movies a little bit with the inflation. Even in the movie industry, Joseph, I mean, you know, you see like so many producers and executive directors and regular directors, editors, mixers, I mean, constantly staying on budget more than ever now. It used to never be like that. You know, production companies would not be afraid to like go over, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, there are, you know, A and B list movies out there, you know, some big names, you know, such as like Independence Day, you know, just to name a few. I mean, those movies in the past were like, we're not afraid to go over like, you know, a certain budget number. Like they want to stay within like, say, $400 million to make the movie. And maybe it took them $600 million to make the movie. Back then it was never an issue, but now it's like they're cutting costs so much. I've seen so much, you know, little tricks in the county, you know, with these latest movie sets that I've been on, you know, set aside from podcasting. And you would not believe, Joseph, half the stuff that they're using, like almost like dollar store type of material. It's really weird. Like, I'm like, why are you guys using this? Well, you know, like the materials so much now because of our inflation and everything else that's going on in the country. Like, we have to stay on budget. And like some of these movies, Joseph, are like, like really, really big production, sets, but still they're cutting costs right now.
Yeah,
Movies is terrible.
they're counting the pennies. Yeah, you save the pennies because they add up, and a whole lot of people still, after COVID, the Wuhan hysteria, haven't all gone back to the movie. Like, my anecdotal evidence, obviously, but my local MJR theater, they have free popcorn Tuesdays. So Tuesday is really busy, but I go on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and it is clear still nowhere near the traffic as it was pre-Wuhan hysteria. So,
yeah, everybody's, like you said, they're pinching pennies. I think you used that term on my show like a few episodes back. Everybody's pinching pennies, Joseph. It's getting bad. I can't tell everybody, when this is going to stop. I mean, hopefully it will end in 2024 when we have, a better administration that comes into power. I can comment on Joe Biden right now. I don't think, Joseph, that Joe Biden is going to be reelected next year. There's no way in hell. I think there was a poll that just came out with 70% of Americans, both sides of the aisle, both Democrat and Republican, don't want Joe Biden to rerun again in 2024.
Yeah, it's astounding. But yet, him and cringe John Pierre, as I call her, cringe John Peon, as I call her. I mean, oh, Bidenomics is working. Oh, the price of gas is down. Yeah. It's still up from when he took office. It may be down $1, but it's still up $1 from when he took office. If you look at the price of things at the grocery store, inflation may be coming down, but it's still record highs for the last 4 or 5 decades. It's out of control. The old saying, what are you going to believe, them or your own lying eyes, or your own?
Well, it's delusion, Joe. I mean, it's really delusion, like reality versus delusion. That's what you're seeing today in today's America. Like, they want you to believe that the economy is at historic highs, jobs are there. Like, really? Guys, I do movie shoots on the side instead from podcasting. I can tell you right now, Joseph, like, even in the movie industry, you know how hard it is to find like quality actors and actresses out there? It's extremely hard. So, I mean, I don't know what reality fantasy land these people in the Biden administration are living in, but I don't believe it one damn bit.
Yeah, no, they twist the language, they twist the terms, they redefine everything. Like under Obama, they redefined the way unemployment was calculated to artificially make it low. Well, it's the same today. Now, Biden and them trying to redefine jobs, right? A lot of these people are returning from COVID still to jobs. Those aren't new jobs in the least. There's no new jobs. If I leave company A to go to company B, I'm switching jobs. That's not a new job. Like, I used to work for Kmart. I've seen it in Michigan politics. Kmart got credits and money from the state of Michigan to build a new IT center on the parking lot across from the headquarters. And then we all moved over from one side of the street to the other side of the street. And of course, the politicians are all out there saying, look at the new jobs we created. We just moved from across the street.
Yeah,
there aren't any new jobs there. It's all smoke and mirrors.
You touched on Kmart. They were struggling for years, Kmart. And even with the merger with what was it, Sears or something, way back, 2 decades ago. That merger with Sears. I mean, they tried to survive with Sears, but still, they made a lot of bad business decisions and everything else, and. a lot of people question that, Joseph, with Kmart, would Kmart be the modern Walmart today if Walmart didn't succeed the way it did? And that's where the flip-flop was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Kmart had a lot of bad CEOs. In fact, one of them went to jail for accounting gimmicks. So, it was at the top. They lost sight of being America's retailer, as they were once called, and I loved and knew them as, and why I wanted to work there. And I forgot where I was going to go with this, but yeah, it's all these. There's a whole lot of fact. Oh, Kmart and Sears. In the end, people on the boards of the merger decided there was more money to make as a real estate company. It's called Sears Holding Company. Holding what? Holding property, real estate.
Yeah.
They shut down all the retail operations and sold off or leased off all the properties to make money in real estate. No retail left, although Kmart.com still exists online. I don't have any contacts on the inside to know what kind of business they are or not doing online. I'm sure glad to see they survived to some degree. But anyway, thanks for stopping by. I just wanted to give the audience a brief chance to meet my friend Michael Gardner, who gave me my start in podcasting. And if for those who are watching on YouTube and Rumble, the behind the scenes sneak peeks versus the audio version, responsible for all the backgrounds I use. As you can see, the one today has got the Savaged Unfiltered logo still on it.
Yeah.
Usually for my show,
you get to see me in my office today, Joseph. So,
a little informal.
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Michael. Take care. God bless. See you next weekend.
Take it easy, Joseph.
Thank you for having tuned into ChristiTutionalist Politics show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via TerrorStrikes.info/shop. And you can obviously learn more about the very non-traditional or fluffy style Christian book, but a Christian book nonetheless. Also, please tune in to Savage Unfiltered Podcast, of which I am a co-host, and be sure to check out more about today's discussion at TheLibertyBeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. In addition to seeing the corresponding TheLibertyBeacon.com piece referenced in any episode of ChristiTutionalist Podcast, see to the show transcript on podcast platforms that provide access to it, like Buzzsprout at tinyurl.com/ChristiTutionalist for additional bonus material there in the transcript. Thank you. Take care. God bless.